We'll get started here. Can everybody hear me out there, computer land? Okay, welcome everyone to the final informational meeting, town and school. We're going to go through the articles. There's no action or voting taking place tonight. Everything is being voted on Australian ballot. You can come in to the community center tomorrow or bring your filled out ballot. You've got till 7 p.m. tomorrow to have your ballot in. Okay, we'll start off with.
Just 1 second. The times have changed slightly. It is 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. 10
Okay, 10 to 7. So don't show up early because you won't be able to do anything.
I'm a little light.
All right, we'll start with school district business. Article 1 is to elect a moderator for the ensuing year. You can skip that one because I always end up doing it anyway. Article 2 is to elect a school treasurer for a 1-year term, currently held by Deb Tangway. She is the only person on the ballot. Deb, anything to say about school treasurer position?
Nope.
Thank you. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Article 3 is to elect a school director for a 2-year term, currently held by Kathleen Ahern. She is on the ballot along with Robert Walls Puma. Kathleen, would you like to say something?
Absolutely. I am Kathleen Ahern and I am running for a 2-year term. I've been on the board for 4 and I would like to continue working on the board. My views are the same. The school is the heart of the community. And if you want a community to grow, you need good economic opportunity, jobs, a way for people to support their families, good affordable housing, and schools where families feel like their children can grow. And I want to help make Coventry Village School that place where each child, no matter where they start, they grow to their fullest potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Does anybody have any questions for Kathleen? Okay, Robert Walls Tuma, is he out here somewhere?
Is not online.
Okay. Article 4, to elect a school director for a 3-year term, currently held by Matt Maxwell. He's out. And on the ballot, we have Praneet Menon. Yeah, Praneet, walk down there.
Yeah, why don't you come down next to the desk right there?
This looks like this spot. Yep.
Sorry, guys, I gotta turn my back to you. Good evening, folks. My name is Praneet Menon, and I'm running for school board for the 3-year term. I spent the last 15 years working for the Army, the Air Force, and private companies, mainly in the defense industry, and I've recently retired. In my career, I spent time leading large engineering projects, managing personnel, and just kind of, making sure that the requirements of our mission were met. In addition to that, my wife is a pediatrician at North Country Hospital, and my daughter is a first grader at the school here. So I'm running for school board, mainly because, just like Kathleen, I do believe that our children are going to be the ones who will lead our town into the future, and as such, we need to have an educated population who can make informed decisions in the future. Additionally, my wife and I both are big believers in higher education, both having pursued post-secondary education ourselves, and we stress academics with our daughter as well. In addition to that, I'm also on the Coventry Town Foundation. My main reason, or one of the main reasons for me joining that organization, was all the work that it does with the school and helping enrich students' experience over here. So I believe that if I'm elected to the school board, I can use my experience in running large projects and managing budgets, making sure that things run in a timely manner. I can use all that experience with the school addition project that we'll be voting on in tomorrow's elections. I believe that things like managing proposals, looking at bids, setting up contracts, and executing the project itself kind of falls right under my belt. Another thing that I want to focus on is enhancing the literacy of our students over here. We do already have a little bit going on right now with the Edmund Douglas Prize Fund, which I thought you were going to touch on there a little bit, Kathleen, but later, gotcha. With that and some other library efforts that's been going on, I would like to enhance that a little bit more and add to it by bringing in more literacy-oriented enrichment programs and exploring ways to fund those. And lastly, please support the bond vote for the building addition project for that's upcoming. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you, folks. Any questions?
Any questions for Praneet? Okay, thank you. Okay, Article 5, under school business. Shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $3,881,536, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year? It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in the education spending of $18,513 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 16.33% higher than spending in the current year. Now, let me explain something first here. That the 16.33% is a little bit misleading. The majority of that increase is coming from ESSER funds, state and federal funds that the school is receiving to help with our COVID. So we don't pay, the taxpayers aren't required to pay that money. We don't pay that money back. It's just money we get from the state, but we have to show it in our budget so that we can show the town and everybody else what we did with that money. Also, we have an increase in high school tuition this year. We had a big 8th grade class, so our high school tuition went up a little bit, so that pushed that number up some. And then the teachers got a 3% raise. So that's all of that 16.33%. We pretty much level funded everything. We didn't add any money anywhere. You know, we knew with the common level, with the appraisal this year, that it was going to be a hit on the taxpayers. So we were quite conservative with what we did there. So most of that number, that 16.33%, there was nothing we could do about it. Anybody have any questions on Article 5? Mike?
I just want to thank the board for sending the letter out explaining what you just explained. When I first read that when the reports came out, and I looked at that, I almost choked. But after receiving the informational letter from the board, I thought you did a good job in explaining the issues, and the majority of it is ARPA money that was coming in to help fight COVID. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, anything else on Article 5? All right, Article 6. Shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to borrow $3.2 million over the period of 30 years for the proposed building addition at Coventry Village School? Now, again, a little bit of explanation on that number. 80% of that 3.2 million will be paid back by the state education fund. The Coventry taxpayers will only be required to pay back 20% of that $3.2 million. So essentially, we'll be getting a $3.2 million addition for whatever 20% of 3.2 million is. The rest will be covered by the state education fund. Any questions on Article 6? Yeah, Mike.
Can you just explain how you get to the point where you feel you need an addition? I haven't followed it somewhat, but through the COVID thing, I think a lot of people have been haven't been able to follow what brought you to that decision. I'm just wondering, have we looked at the census numbers that just came out, and what kind of trends are we looking at? With school population growing in Coventry, or is it kind of just up and down thing? Just trying to better understand your thoughts on why you think we need an addition.
Jamie?
Sure. When the school was built, it was built for 8 grades. We have since added preschool, so that's another grade that we've added. The population has increased, our number of students here. It hasn't been every year. It's been a little bit up and down, but it has increased. I think what's changed a lot in the last 20 years since the school was built and designed for the first through 8th grade is the additional need for enrichment programs. Praneet hit on that a little bit, counseling services and special education. 20, 30 years ago, you had a classroom and everybody was in there and everybody learned at the same pace and learned the same material. things have changed in the educational system, as you know, in that we need special breakaway areas for enrichment, for literacy programs, math advancement, office space, special learning. So a lot of those spaces we just never had and don't have. Pretty mentioned the library as well as Kathleen. We use that for a multitude of things. You know, there's most part of the day you can't go in the library because there's special ed going on or there's this going on. Well, if you look at this closet back here, which was built to store basketballs and soccer balls, is used for education. So we just don't have those spaces. You've probably noticed that we've got the temporary trailer out there, which we had to put in so that we can have those spaces. So instead of renting and continuing to have a station or a temporary building, we felt it was important to grow the school so that we have those spaces so that our kids get the proper education in the proper classrooms, learning spaces, and office spaces.
So, but did you look at the census and kind of work with the planning commission at all to try to understand what, you know, what the projections look like for Coventry? Coventry, you know, student population.
The projections are really hard, because the majority of our fluctuations come from moving in and moving out, not from births and graduations. It's really fluctuates greatly. What we did look at was, you know, buildings going on in Coventry, more homes being built and more families moving in. If you look in my part of my letter in the annual report, I try and include that move-in piece and move out, and that's been overall an increase. There's been a couple of years where we've had more move-outs than move-ins, but that it just seems like the population is hard to predict by births with such a transient population. But looking at that and the what's the word I'm looking for? Desirability of living in Coventry, that our numbers are just going to go up. Again, not steadily, you know, like Jamie said, they've gone up and down to some degree. But we hit, you know, a dramatic new high 2 years ago with 150 kids. And that was, you know, from 90 to 150 in just 5 years. That's a big increase. We're down now from that high, but yeah, it's a big change.
Was that just prior to COVID when you saw the numbers go up?
Yep.
I think it
Yep.
was.
Yep. And speaking of COVID, the modular classrooms gave us an immense leg up when it came to all that new guidance on spacing and everything. We really would have had to, had we been in the existing building and template before the modulars, we would have definitely had to do a hybrid model with multiple grades, if not all the grades, to keep them distanced that way. Special ed would have taken a really big hit because they were still working out of the library primarily. And so it allowed us to keep kids in person on a daily basis. And so I know we're not hoping for, you know, another pandemic, but you know, having that flexibility and those tools for the unexpected is really, really key.
And yes,
Go ahead. Does the state have any plans to, I know the big part of the state's move in the last, you know, good 6 years has been to work in consolidating districts and working and trying to create, you know, unions that are all like south of us here, the whole Southern Union is all one now, for elementary and for St. Joe Lake region and so on. Are they gonna try to do something like that more in this area and do something with the junior highs or?
Right now, there's no more talk of that. That seems to have run its course until the next surge of that, you know, years down the line that we can't predict. But right now, no one's at any levels talking about further, you know, mandated or enticements to merge.
just, I know when we built the school here, you know, we have the upstairs, that we were, when we built it, we're thinking, if we ever needed to increase capacity space, that we would use that. And I think you probably ran into some roadblocks here, I'm imagining, and that's why looking to build again and not utilize that upstairs. But
Yeah,
can
it
you
would have
just
been
explain what
quite a
you-
bit more costly to go up.
Is that right?
You have to go up, yeah.
It would have been ideal in some ways because we have such a limited footprint here outside, got the road and the hill and, we just don't have a lot of room to go up. But it was another 30–40% of that price just to go up. So the price per square foot was quite a bit more. Yeah, we'll be talking more about it, but if you guys want to jump in. We have our architects from the building project.
Another point I just want to add to yours, Todd, was,
You want to introduce yourself, Kevin?
sorry, Kevin Trout, Scott and Partners Architecture. We helped develop the conceptual design to describe the project that we're going after. One of the aspects of going up is that we have to have structural columns and beams below, which would really impair the ability for the school to stay open during the normal school year. Construction phasing, so building an addition outside of the bounds of the existing building hopefully helps us alleviate that problem of what to do with the school when we're trying to build. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Any other questions on Article 6? Any other school business questions or comments before we move on to town business? Okay. Town business it is. Article 7, elect a town moderator for the ensuing year. Yeah, we already have a year for that. Article 8, to elect the following officers required by law. Letter A, select person, 3-year term, currently held by David Gallup. David is on the ballot along with Amanda Jensen, Praneet Menon, and Martha Sylvester. Amanda, would you care to share some words with us about being on the select board?
I should probably go up there. Absolutely.
Yes. Go where you want.
I did come prepared today. Yes. Good evening. My name is Amanda Jensen, and I'm hoping for your support tomorrow in my run for select person. I've served on the school board for about 8 years. I think we're right around there. And feel like that experience has prepared me for this position. I have a vested interest, as do the rest of you, in the success of our town. In order for our town to succeed, we need every member of our select board to work together without drama, without personal agendas, and with only one goal in mind: move our community forward in a meaningful and transparent manner. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Amanda?
Thank you.
I don't see David or Martha's not out there, is she?
No.
Okay, Praneet, you're up again.
Hello there, folks. Once again, I'm Praneet Menon, and this time I'm running for the select person for Town of Coventry. I'm running for select board because I believe in stepping up, rolling up my sleeves, and serving the community that I live in, regardless of how long I've been here. I want to help to build a town that is a place not only for our benefit, but for our kids, and help them raise their families and make them well positioned for the trials of what the future is going to bring for them. To achieve that future, I think we need to start planning for it today, because our windfall from Casella is going to be gone in a couple of decades. And planning something of that magnitude is going to take a while. So I think starting now is a smarter idea than waiting till it's gone. So in my mind, while we continue with our current investments, and we have figured out what our investment goals need to be to maintain our current tax policy, what we should now focus on is trying to smartly use any additional funds that we may have so that we can position our town for when that Casella contract comes to an end. That may include adding, adding additional help for businesses that can grow over here, or maybe even expanding our community as more of a bedroom community that has been pointed out in the 2018 Planning Commission. So coming to that one, I'd like to work hand in hand with the Planning Commission as well, because that was a pretty decent document that got put together a few years ago, and it does need some updating. The only downside of it was that because of COVID and other issues, we have been unable to execute the goals in there. Especially because we never assigned anyone responsible to making sure that those goals were achieved. And in my book, if you don't assign someone responsible for something, things just don't get done. So now that COVID is done, maybe not done, but now that we are learning to live with COVID, it's time for us to get back into focus and get to work in getting our town up and running. One other thing to keep in mind, as I mentioned, is Coventry is turning into more of a bedroom community. In my opinion, at least, I don't see a business explosion happening over here. What I see is people working in the urban areas nearby, and then coming and resting their heads at night in our town. And as such, I think that our town updates and our town enrichment should really focus on fostering such a community for the future, which means expanded emergency services, access to high-speed internet for everyone, and continuing our current infrastructure projects, basically to ensure that we are moving into the 21st century. The goal here would be to complete those projects in a cost-effective and timely manner, as well as securing our financial future by making sure that we're not overrunning our budgets. So since moving to Coventry, I've been attending select board meetings on a regular basis. I have stepped up for a planning commission position when we needed it. I'm on the Coventry Town Foundation board. I just generally like to help out with things around the town, like helping out with the fall festival, and I help out the school on a weekly basis as well. So with all of my community service, the experience that I've had that I mentioned to you guys in my last speech, I believe that has made me forward-thinking and open to solutions without biases to people, especially having lived all around the country where political views, religious views, and cultural views are completely different than what mine were. It makes me want to be more friendly and compromising than trying to push any personal agendas that we may have. So that said, as select person, my goal will be to be available to everybody, work hard to keep our town running as it is running today, and exploring opportunities for the future so that we are not only setting up success for ourselves, but for the future generations to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Praneet. Any questions for Praneet regarding the select person position? Okay, thank you. Okay, Article 8, letter B, town clerk, 3-year term, currently held by Deb Tangway, and she is the only person on the ballot for this position. Deb, any words on the town clerk?
I'll just say that I have enjoyed being the town clerk since 2017. Since that time frame, we have worked to get the office back into order and to try to increase some efficiencies as far as getting the land records online for the last 40 years. I will be receiving my Vermont certification for clerk this fall, and I would be welcome to being your clerk for another 3 more years.
Thanks, Deb. Does anybody have any questions for Deb? Okay, Article 8, letter C, town treasurer, 3-year term, currently held by David Barlow. He is the only person on the ballot. David?
Yes, thank you very much. I would appreciate your vote. Had the job now for 3 years. We've had 3 audits that I would say we've successfully completed. And that's a good thing. Looking forward to continuing to serve. Thank you. Over.
Anybody got a question for David? Okay, thanks, David. Article 8, letter D, collector of delinquent taxes, 1-year term, currently held by Kate Fletcher. She is on the ballot for re-election. Also, we have Carrie Keeman on the ballot. Kate, you want to go first?
Yes, am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, hello, my name is Kate Fletcher. I am asking for your support again as the delinquent tax collector for the town of Coventry, a position that I've held since 2017. So for the past 5 years, I've worked very hard to get our delinquent tax records into our accounting software. When I first took over this position 5 years ago, there were no receipts and the accounting system was in a complete disarray. So it took me about, I would say, 6 to 12 months to get all of the records accurately accredited to the proper accounts. Since that time, I've also tried to be fair and equitable, treating all of our residents and property owners equally. I've worked diligently to have tax payment plans for people that needed them, and worked with them so that their property could be retained in their homes as opposed to going to a tax sale. I've also send out monthly delinquency notices so people know where they stand with their accounts. This has been sort of a difficult position in the fact that most of everyone that has a delinquent tax is either a friend or neighbor. So I try to build a relationship, you know, again, that's both honest and equitable. I've also worked with the town treasurer in the past and the current town treasurer with online payment system, which seems to work out well for people, as well as have taxes due the same day every year, which has led to less delinquencies in our town. So I've collected in excess of $250,000 for our town since I've been here. And if you look at the town report, you will see the numbers have been steadily declining. And so the delinquent taxes owed are now well below $30,000, which is great for the town of Coventry. So I appreciate your support and thank you so much for your opportunity to serve.
Thanks, Kate. Any questions for Kate? Okay, Carrie, come on down.
The next contestant. So my name is Carrie Keenan. I'm also running for delinquent tax collector. I'm no nonsense, straightforward. You know, I've lived in the community my entire life. I, you know, done stuff with the school, with my kids growing up, parents club, Girl Scouts, chaperoning, that type of thing. And then I kind of fell away from it. I've worked 14 years at Freedom Physical Therapy in the accounts receivable. And I have, you know, 20 plus years in that role, you know, including jobs before that. So I think with being a resident and knowing a lot of people, and, you know, I've been on both sides. I've been I am the taxpayer, but I've also been, you know, the accounts receivable. So I just want to get back more into the town. I was on the Fall Festival Committee this last fall. I was recently appointed to John Miller's Justice of the Peace seat. And I just want to be more involved. I was born and raised on the airport road, moved to Route 14, raised my kids there, who now raise their families in Coventry. We're, you know, all within a quarter of a mile of each other, and 3 of the 4 grandchildren attend school here, and then the next one starts in September. So I just, you know, value the community that I love and would like to be able to serve the community, become more involved. Just the meetings I've attended recently, I've learned a lot of what's going on. And I just want to be more involved. So I hope everybody votes regardless, and I hope I get some votes too. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Any questions for Carrie before she sits down? Okay, thank you. Article 8, letter E, Cemetery Commissioner, 3-year term, currently held by Jerry St. Severe. He is the only person on the ballot. And I don't believe he's with us tonight. Letter F, Cemetery Commissioner, 2-year term. I don't know who currently holds this, but there is nobody on the ballot for this. So write in whoever you want. Article 8, letter G, First Constable, 1-year term, currently held by Pedro Grondin. He is not on the ballot, but he does want this position again. So he just didn't get his name in time, but please write in Pedro for First Constable. He's willing to do it. Letter H, Second Constable, 1-year term, currently held by Jesse Testu. He is not interested in returning, so anybody's got any ideas for that spot, write in who you think. Letter I, Trustee of Cemetery Funds, currently held by David Barlow, and he is on the ballot for this again. David, you want to talk about the cemeteries?
Just a quick update. The cemetery does have funds. They're invested with the town's financial advisor along with the town's investment account. And everything's in good shape. We did actually spend some out of those in cemetery investments funds this year when we did a very long-term maintenance up at the Four Corner Cemetery, up at the intersection of Airport Road and Coventry Station Road. Some gravestones were redone, headstones reset, re-leveled, the kind of long-term maintenance you need to do on a cemetery from time to time, and that fund paid for that. With that, I'm done. Thanks, over.
Thanks, David. Any questions for David on cemetery fund or whatever, cemetery funds? Yep. Okay. All right, the next four, J, K, L, and M, are planning commission. We need 4 people for that. We have Israel Sandville as the only returning planning commission member. We have nobody on the ballot for any of those 4 spots, but we do have 2 people that have expressed interest in being written in. Amanda Hussey and Zach Partridge are interested in the 2-year terms. So please write those names in because they want to be on the planning commission. And then we have 2 other spots open. You know, planning commission is an important part of the town. So, you know, it's important that we have, 5 people that are really invested in it and want to put the work in and do it because it's an important thing. So I encourage anybody that's interested in being on the planning commission to, come forward and write your name in and tell all your friends to do it too. Okay, anything else on Article 8? All right, Article 9, shall the legal voters of the town of Coventry vote to appropriate the sum of $836,294 for support of the fiscal year 2023 town liabilities and general fund expenses, of which all shall be raised by non-tax revenues received through the landfill host agreement. Anybody got a question on 9? Mike?
On the general fund budget, on page 27, we're looking at miscellaneous, 100-0-19.990.00. We're showing an actual of 5,738 in miscellaneous. I'm just wondering what that might be. Seems kind of high for miscellaneous.
Bill?
David, could you hear that?
I couldn't really hear.
So under
Miscellaneous.
1,999 or 990, there's an actual of 5,738. Page 27.
If you can come back to me and give me about 2 minutes, I can tell you the answer. I gotta run the number.
Okay, we'll do Article 10, then we'll go back to it. Oh, you got another question on 9? Go ahead.
In this budget, does it include, where did the COVID funds go? Where do we?
The ARPA funds, that hasn't reached into the budget.
It hasn't come in yet, right?
No. Well, we've gotten partial payments, but nothing's been.
Nothing's been prioritized for a specific project, and those would be treated similar to how we would spend money out of reserve account. They would not be from the general fund budget. They would be expensed as a specific, like a capital item, capital expenditure.
So but we do have some of them in already.
Some of it's in, it hasn't been spent because we have to do all the FEMA.
Right. But we have got some of the
Yeah.
COVID funds. Yeah, that's not in here yet.
No, it's like 280,000.
Yeah, it's somewhere just under 300 grand.
Right.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
We have to have it not accounted, but.
We have to have it expended by 2024.
Yeah.
Or allocated.
Allocated, that's the word I was looking for. Okay, gotcha. It's gotta be allocated by, I think it's actually 23 and then spent for 24.
Yeah,
And that was something we were gonna plan to have a planning commission get in and since we have that time to be able to figure out what we want to use it to do with, is we'll take the time to come up with what's gonna work or help the community best.
Right, and use the planning commission, try to find that out.
Yep.
And there is a recognition that it is use it or lose it. They will happily take it back from us if we don't expend it.
I know they were still going through changes, like what you can use it for, what you can't, and I don't know if they've actually finalized that yet. Have you heard? I'll still go until after, right?
Anything else on Article 9? Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I know a few years ago when I was sitting on the board, I know we were talking about Nemrick and whether or not we should move away from Nemrick. And I don't know if we're continuing to have those conversations.
That's a David
That's a
Brown
David
question
question.
again.
That they're actually replacing Nemrick with a new piece of software that they're slowly transitioning from them to this other piece. I don't know that, I forget the name off the top of my head. It starts with a K.
Go ahead, Mike, David.
Yeah, it's a two-part story. That is correct, that a piece of NEMRIC that deals with the grand list and the grand list only is being replaced by PVR. In a typical, for most software replacements, it's taking longer than expected, but I think sometime in the next couple of years, we'll see that roll out to replace the grand list portion of NEMRIC. As far as I'm aware, there's no other statewide plan to replace the accounting portion of NEMRIC. We have looked from time to time at replacing at least a piece of NEMRIC with QuickBooks, but we quickly run into the fact that we have to keep NEMRIC for various tax and delinquent tax accounting purposes that, so we'd end up really with 3 different systems instead of 1. So it's a tough problem, but we continue to look at it, just not making a lot of headway at the moment. Over.
Thank you.
I do have an answer for the question about miscellaneous revenue.
Go ahead, David.
So the largest chunk of it, roughly $3,600, was a legal settlement. There was a class action suit against one of the issuers of the what were those things called? Annuities that the town used to hold. When we cashed ours in, the company didn't reimburse us correctly, along with a whole bunch of other people. So we received a $3,600 settlement for that. That went into miscellaneous income. And then the board approved us moving that straight to the town's investment fund. So that simply passed through there on its way to the town's investment fund. The next biggest chunk of that's $890 received from the city of Newport to reimburse us for chloride that we purchased for them. And then there's a whole bunch of little stuff. Over.
Good on that, Mike?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The new, the church, or whatever we calling it again now?
Elijah Cleveland.
Yeah. it's Elijah
Meeting house.
Is that got its own section, or is that under community center?
That's falling under the town, the building and maintenance.
Yes, all the expenditures from there have either been, there's been some expenditures for water and for electricity that are right out of the community center's budget line item in the budget. All the other expenditures, the renovations, are capital expenditures out of the reserve fund or from the $50,000 grant that we got from the Reservation for Vermont Historical something or other. I forget the whole name. It's a big long name.
Right now, because we're not occupying it, we're still repairing it. The costs are pretty minimal. Do you think it'll just fall into the community center building eventually, or once it's all? Right, you guys not that far yet, right?
Yeah, we're not that far.
Right, okay.
It still needs a tremendous amount of renovation.
Yeah.
Usable in a more general sense. There is-
Anything else on Article 9?
Actually, hang on, back to the meeting house, sorry. We do have a contractor on board to replace the roof, so there won't be any more leaks, and it'll be a black metal roof, standing seam with a double layer of snow guards, tubular snow guards across both sides, so it doesn't shoot snow out into the street, or your street. Thank you.
Thanks, Ned. Anything else on Article 9? Go ahead, Mike.
On page 32, on the SWIP committee, SWIP school outreach. Is there a reason why we're not using the restricted funds that we had for in the solid waste fund instead of putting it in the budget?
I don't think there is a solid. You mean a separate solid reserve fund?
We do have a solid waste fund. Under the reserve funds, it's $14,412.78. I'm just wondering why budget when we have the budget for the, because that's supposed to be, my recollection is that we reserve that in order to use that for community education and school education for the solid waste implementation plan.
Some of that outreach is provided by state funds, so it's not completely our expenditure. We're getting grants. We
Okay,
get
so-
approximately $3,000 in grants. Part of that is that the other 500 is part of that grant also, and part of the 11,000 is the household hazardous waste day. At least, I'm gonna say $1,500. Don't quote me on that exact amount. If you'd like the exact amount, I can get it out of my office tomorrow.
That's fine, but
Yeah,
that's for hazardous.
Household hazardous
HHW,
waste,
right?
yes.
But they also are providing now grants for school.
Yes.
Education as well.
Yes, they are, but they're all sort of jammed in together. Yeah.
I guess I think it'd be nice if, we got that 14,000 sitting there. And if we could get the SWIP committee involved and start maybe educating more of the community. Hazardous waste and, this whole climate is taking over. And the more that people can do, especially with composting and things like that. Just wondering if the SWIP committee can look at it a little stronger, maybe do a little bit more with the school. I know we used to hire buses to bring the kids up to the landfill so they understand exactly how that whole system is working. And maybe we could.
And there was a time that they sent home recycling boxes to, the kids' home too. That was part of the-
nothing's really
And we used to do a lot of contests with the school. Where they would, do different recycling type projects, and the winners, we would provide a pizza party for them. That, a lot of different things that we could do to really encourage. And I think when the kids are bringing this back home, and it gets the parents involved in it. So just, throwing it out there, I think that of course, all of this takes people to do it. So we need volunteers for everything.
I wish Sherry was here because we had a couple meetings with Casella and there was some Kelly, is it, that
Yeah,
they were
Kelly
working
from
with
Casella.
that? I think she was gonna be working on school outreach.
She does quite a bit of it. She's done some mailings, the website, and there was another part to it. I always forget the other part. I think it was a video that she did with the school district, but we need SWIP committees. We'd like the members would like to volunteer.
I've done quite a bit. I'm still doing quite a bit, not directly with them.
Oh, you're just.
But yes, I mean, I get it. We need people. And just one last thought, again, on the reserve funds, and I know we haven't, because of COVID, we've been kind of stymied, but the community and economic development dollars that we have there, we have $253,000. And I hope, or maybe working with the planning commission, that we can really come up with an idea or how do we want to incent some type of economic development within the town. I think as Praneen was talking about housing, And I can tell you, housing is a huge workforce problem that we have in the state right now. And if we can use some of that money to help a developer and incent them either to, within in the village, where we also have village tax credits available, or even outside, the village center, but within the town. Anything we can do to help or help business, any new business that might want to come in. I think we need to think in those terms, maybe continue to, if it starts working, so we can provide grant dollars, we could provide no interest loans or low interest loans. And working with NVDA as well, they may be able to work with the planning commission to come up with some ideas and thoughts on how we could actually use those dollars to invest in Coventry and invest actually in the area too. So by just having either some new housing, new businesses, whatever, but that money sits there. It's not gaining some interest, but it's not really doing what we want it to do as far as an investment for the town. Just some thoughts.
Okay, last call on Article 9. Article 10, shall the legal voters of the town of Coventry vote to appropriate the sum of $274,000 plus Vermont state aid funding for the support of the fiscal year 2023 Town Highway Fund, expenses for summer and winter road maintenance, of which all shall be raised by non-tax revenues received through the landfill host agreement. Anybody on Article 10? Okay, Article 11, this is kind of a weird one. Article 12 and 13 are dependent on Article 11 being approved. So Article 11 reads, shall the legal voters of the town of Coventry vote to split the Roads, Infrastructure and Equipment Reserve Fund into two reserve funds to be called the Roads Infrastructure Reserve Fund and the Roads Capital Equipment Reserve Fund to enable better allocation and management of funding by placing $100,000 of the existing fund balance into Roads Capital Equipment Reserve Fund and the balance of the existing fund, approximately $272,000, into the Roads Infrastructure Reserve Fund in accordance with 24 VSA 2804. So they'd like to split it up. So they have money for equipment and then money for roads. Basically. Any questions on that one? Mike?
I don't have a question, just a comment that, yep, I think it makes a lot of sense. It just shows, it's going to show more transparency to the voters when it, understanding where the money is going when it's used in those respects. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so now Article 12 is not going to be, it's null and void if 11 doesn't get approved. So Article 12 reads, shall excess revenues received in fiscal year 2021 into the highway fund of $70,000 and into the general fund of $762,000, totaling $832,000 be transferred to the Roads Infrastructure Reserve Fund if said reserve fund described in Article 11 is approved by the voters, or if not, into the existing Roads Infrastructure and Equipment Reserve Fund to fund future road infrastructure projects. So if 11 passes, we'll vote. You can vote yes and put the money in there. If it doesn't pass, it's just going to stay where it was. Any questions on that one? Okay, Article 13 is sort of the same thing, except for this one is, shall excess revenues received in fiscal year 2021 into the general fund of $100,000 be transferred to the Roads Capital Equipment Reserve Fund if said reserve fund described in Article 11 is approved by voters, or if not, into the existing Roads Infrastructure and Equipment Reserve Fund to fund future roads capital equipment requirements. So same thing. We'd like to, yep.
So the entire excess that we have this year would go just to one fund? Or even if it's split, it would still go to two funds?
So if Article 11 passes, it's gonna put basically, yes,
Yeah,
All the other funds, all the other funds are funded enough. We have enough funds in building and maintenance.
Well, how about like Mike had mentioned, like the community fund? If we're looking to try to do in the future, we're trying to create a revolving credit, system for housing or energy efficiency or any number of things. Would we need some funding into those or?
So if you're talking about economic development, there's already 250,000 in there.
Right.
Me personally, I don't know without having a plan of knowing what you would end up doing, if it's good to put more money in there without having a plan for it.
Well, we don't have a plan for all the money that's in the road.
The road infrastructure fund, there is plans this year to do some more paving.
Okay.
To finish up.
Now, on that point, why is it that the town of Cobble, is it because we approved all the funds going to the reserve funds? That the town is never asked to vote on capital expenditures any longer? But most other towns are required to vote for capital expenditures or roll it into the budget.
That's because.
That's how the reserve fund works.
Yeah, but a lot of those things are transfers out of a reserve fund or into a reserve fund. That would affect the general budget or a line item in the general budget. So that's why they're voted on. Whereas in the town of Coventry, we have purely reserve funds and you vote to put them in there and then authorize at some point previously the select board to expend those funds for those specific items.
The restricted.
So the definition of our reserve funds has a definition of
what it can be used for.
What it's used for?
Yeah, so
specifically?
those
Have you voted on it?
they're restricted reserve funds. So like the road infrastructure is only to be used for road and infrastructure, paving, culverts, that type of thing. And since it's voted to be in there, it's given the permission to use it for that.
So after this year, with the, say, the other 800,000, we'll have what, 1.6 million in it?
Well, if the Article 11 doesn't pass, yes, it would be that way. If Article 11 does pass, then it'd be 832 in the infrastructure and then 100 or 200 something in the equipment.
It'd be 100,000 in the equipment fund, 72 plus 800, so 1.1 million roughly in roads and infrastructure, and 100,000 in vehicles or equipment.
And that, we feel we kind of have a home for that going forward, or a plan,
We have a home for that going forward.
and that is for paving, or?
More paving, finish some paving contracts that are still not done. We have to fund those. I think they're in the tune of about 400,000.
Yeah, it's in that order magnitude.
And then-
400 or 500.
500,000 or 600,000 possibly, new roads to be paved, or culverts, or needs, whatever needs to be done.
I think it was on average.
And part of that money will be used to fix the mud hole that's on, or happened a couple of weeks ago on Pine Hill, right by where the pond is.
Yeah, there's so up right across from Al's.
Up and out, okay.
There's we had an engineer come in and take a look, and that's gonna be fixed for drainage and everything there.
Anything else? Article 14. Shall the excess revenue received in fiscal year 2021 into the general fund of $35,000 be transferred to the reappraisal reserve fund to fund future reappraisal requirements? Any questions on Article 14? Okay, Article 15. Shall excess revenues received in fiscal year 2021 into the general fund of $4,800 be transferred to the Edmund Douglas Price Fund to make up for Microsoft stock dividends paid to the town for the EDP fund from 2003 through 2013, but not entered into the town's financial accounting system? David?
Yes.
You want to just give us a brief explanation on Article 15?
Surely I do.
Thank you.
So the EDP fund was originally funded by the generous donation of 300 shares of Microsoft stock in 1999. In 2003, Microsoft actually started paying a dividend quarterly to shareholders, and the town was in effect receiving that quarterly dividend payment. And in all likelihood, that ended up in the general fund, but we have no proof of that. We don't have a record of it. In order to satisfy the auditor and pay out those funds now, as we have been doing in support of the school, we do need to make that fund whole. So this is one way of saying, okay, we'll take this small amount of money and put that into the EDP fund and make it whole, recognizing that it wasn't put in the accounting system between 2003 and 2013. Going forward, though, from 2014 onward, it is entirely in the accounting system. So there's been 3 treasurers, including myself, back to Cynthia Diaz, who have entered in those dividends into the accounting system. It was probably a matter in the intervening years of not knowing how to do it or not knowing you had to do it. Over.
Thanks, David. Any questions on 15? Kathleen?
Just a comment. I ask you to vote yes for that. Our school library, because it was given by the prizes to the school, and it should be in that endowment fund. And the agreement that the select board has reached with the school board is that each year we will agree on a maximum amount that we're going to spend based on, what's the correct term, dividends paid? Like actual.
Correct.
Right, not from the principal, but from what it's earning. This school desperately needs it. In our library, we have about 5,000 books. 99% of that is in print books and only 1% is digital. In 2022, I think that balance needs to be a little different. That concerns me. I think we can offer more digitally, and we would use EDP funds for that. The other challenge that the school has is the average age of our collection is 20 years old. It is from 2002. I mean, think about the age of our students. There's so many great current books. We just need to update it. And to do that, we need a person to do that administratively, to make those decisions, to look at books, decide what to buy, order them, put them in the inventory. And the way the personnel is allocated now, we need, a librarian needs more time to do that. And so the prices have suggested that we have the library open during the summer. And so that would be a great thing. One, for the families to be able to come in for very limited hours in the summer, but also to give the librarian a chance to do so many administrative things like update this collection with these funds. So I ask you to vote yes for Article 15. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen. Okay, Article 16. Shall the legal voters of the town of Coventry authorize the select board to appoint the town treasurer as provided at 17 BSA 2651F, whose elected term will expire in accordance with 17 BSA 2651FC, if this article is approved. So we'd like to, or the town would like to make the position of treasurer no longer something we vote on, but something that's appointed by the select board. Their reasons for this are quite valid. You know, it's a sizable chunk of money. We need a professional accountant handling that money and those investments for this town. It can't be a political position or something like that. It's important for all of our futures in this town that we have a professional accountant treasurer handling that money. That's why they're asking to make this an appointed position. Any questions on 16? Yes, Kathleen.
Phil, on Saturday, you made several points as to why that was needed. Could you read those or share those?
I did. Okay. Appointed treasurer, why? The position requires very specific technical skills in the municipal accounting and information technology fields. The position does not require decision-making affected by being a town resident. State and federal statutes and regulation guide the work. Filling the position should not be left to the policies of a general election. The job is technical in nature, not political, and we have experienced what happens when this position is taken over by politics. The town has a substantial financial net worth and requires the best possible treasurer services available at a reasonable cost. The position should be subject to rapid removal for cause. The time to make this appointment positive is now, while we have a stable situation.
Any questions on Article 16? Yes, Mike.
I just say that I fully agree with this move for the town. Not to blow my own horn, but the difficulties that we had in the past, I was able to introduce a bill that made these changes so that the town could make that decision, not just our town, but all the towns in the state that are uncharted. So I'm glad to see that we're exercising it. It makes a lot of sense, especially for this town, because of the enormous amount of money that we had, that we let the select board make the decision on who to hire to run our finances for us. I will say that our current treasurer has done and continues to do a very good job for us. And I'm sure it's no reflection on his abilities. I'm hoping that he stays in the mix. But I think in future, just as Scott just said, one of the reasons is that if there are irregularities that come to light, we can move swiftly in changing that and stopping things where prior we could not do that, and we still can't do that. So I would ask everyone to support that change.
Okay, thanks. All right, Article 17, these are our the service agencies that we give money to. I'm not gonna read all of them. I see Ruth's out here. Ruth, do you want to talk about human services?
Yes, thank you. I'm Ruth Marquette, and I'm actually here representing Northeast Kingdom Human Services and the Vermont Symphony Orchestra, who are on this list. We appreciate your past support, and we hope you will continue to support our programming. If there's any questions, I will be happy to answer what I can. And I think you have the reports in your town report. So thank you.
Any questions for Ruth? Any questions on Article 17? Kathleen?
On page 6 of the town report, under Article 17, there's a list of the amounts and then the agencies. But in trying to read the town report, there are two areas that are a mismatch. Like the amount listed in Article 17, the $3,000 for the Goodrich Memorial Library, doesn't match the request on page 66, where they're asking for $3,500. The same with the Orleans County Children's Advocacy Center. In the article, it's listed as new and a request for $500, but on page 71, they're requesting $350. So one question in two parts: why the different amounts listed on the ballot from what the agencies requested?
The $3,000 is actually, that's an easy one. They failed to provide the necessary the petition and signatures to authorize the additional expenditure. So they didn't have, I forget what it was, 5% of the voters signed. So they only are going to get the 3,000. To have an increase, you need a certain number of signatures on a petition, and they failed to provide that.
I thought all they had to do was just send a letter and ask for it.
No, they don't. They have to provide, if they have an increase, we have a whole policy for social service agency appropriations. So they failed to, and they did not.
Yeah, with an increase.
Yeah.
But we paid them, or we gave them $3,500 last year, so it would have been, they were just asking the same amount.
I can could check that, but I
Yeah.
don't.
And I only, again, tell me if I'm looking in the wrong places, but when I looked in the 2020 town report, I thought I saw 3,500.
It would have been on about the same page.
Yeah, it's on page 78 of the 2020 town report.
Yep, it appears as though the administrator is another mistake. I apologize. I want to check through the funds, but it appears as though you are correct.
Okay, and then on the, again, I just want the library. What caught my eye when I read it was like, wow, that's less than last year. That never happened. So I just went looking as to why. And then on the new one, the Orleans County Children's Advocacy, again, they're a new request. Why would we give them more than they asked for?
I will have to check that one out. That might be.
I mean, I know it's too late. The ballots are out, the articles are out, it's done. But I think the town needs to look at how we address this and make this right with the Goodrich or with this Orleans County Children's Advocacy, if in fact Article 17 is approved. So I just ask you to look into that.
Okay.
And then my second thing is not a question, but a comment. In previous years' town reports, there was like a little asterisk if it was a new request or if it was a change in amount. And I found that to be very helpful in trying to do a comparison. So just again, a request, could we somehow annotate it when it's a change?
Yes.
Thank you. Over.
Anything else on Article 17? Okay, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Wait, and then the next though is the addition.
Right, these, yeah.
So if you want to learn more about the addition, stay seated.
Mike?
Before we wrap
Yeah,
up,
let's do a quick break.
just a couple of minor things, but when I was looking at the minutes of both meetings last year, and I read that town employees and the town clerk and town treasurer were included in that. They are not town employees, they are elected officials. And so we need to reflect that in our minutes. And also in here, when there was a discussion of, all the legalities of what does this mean, what does that mean? When I looked at zoning, and it says Coventry does not have zoning, or it's not entirely correct, that we do have zoning in flood zones. So we should have a zoning administrator for that. And so we need to make sure that town people understand that there is zoning, but only if you're in a floodplain. So just in case people start doing things in the floodplain when they shouldn't be doing it. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks.
Can we were gonna do this at the end, but if anybody's gonna leave, maybe now is the time. This is Matt Maxwell's last official meeting as chair of the school board, as a member of the school board. Maybe you'll come back someday, but right now, 9 years of doing a stellar job. I've only been here for 4 of those, but he's been amazing. That's the 4 you've been the chair. So you started that at the same time as I started at Coventry. And he's been amazingly supportive of the school, a critical thinker as a school board member, runs a tight meeting in a time of a lot of discord. So I just think we all owe a big gratitude of thanks to Matt for the work he's done.
And now that Matt's Wednesday evenings are free, I offer his services to you. He's free, he's not busy on Wednesday.
And
Thank
if you
you.
remember, rugby is beat up.
Right. That's Wednesdays. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. It's it's an important job, and I'm not doing it because I don't enjoy doing it anymore. I'm getting done because I personally believe that people shouldn't hang around on boards. I think it's important that new people get a chance to do this. You know, the 5 people that are on this board, we're in charge of a sizable chunk of money. And I think as many people that live in this town can see it from this side, the better. So I just, you know, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed my time with all these past and present. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Right, we're up. And do we want to do a quick break or do we?
No,
I
we
don't
can
know
jump
how many
right
people
into
are
it.
staying for the addition. I know some people have sat through before. You tell us, we'd love to, or should we just jump right in?
Go for it.
Yeah.
What's that? Go for it, all right.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of went through a lot of it already. I think, you know, this is our 5th informational meeting that we've done this year. We, you know, we've been going about 6 years on this. Pre-COVID, we had a number of informational meetings that were very well attended. I'm a little upset that we haven't gotten the amount of turnout this time. You know, we tried to send them, we sent a mailer out to every resident in the town. We put stuff online. We've had an article in the Newport Daily, in the Barton Chronicle, and, you know, we've been trying to get the message out to everybody. Basically, everybody's been through the presentation, so we didn't have a whole lot of time earlier in the meeting, but, you know, I'd love to show you the plans, have these guys to tell you a little bit more about it and, you know, answer any specific questions that you have.
Yeah, please ask what you get for your $3.5 million. How many square feet, what kind of spaces? Yeah, Scott and Park.
2.8, put this up.
And you did such a great job. I mean, in all seriousness, Mike, the planning school board of 20-some years ago did such a great job that aren't we in a good position that we don't have to start from scratch like happened a generation ago? This is really, I mean, 10,000 square feet would make all the difference in the world in terms of the impact on learning with our students, but really it's very small because we don't have to acquire land and, you know, all the other things that had to be done before.
Well, and I spent a lot of time in other schools, just to go back to, you know, 25 years ago, in other schools, and this one is such a bright and cheery place with our, you know, lots of windows and our wide hallways and everything, and not a, you know, cinder block walls everywhere. So it's just, it's an amazing building to start with, but this would really take us, you know, another generation or two in the work we want to do. Do you want to pass it down?
Yeah, then just one other thing, and Mike, you may be able to speak to this a little bit more, but the business administrator at the supervisory union, you know, let us know. We're gonna be registering this if it passes with the state. And if in 5 years or 10 years down the road, the state starts to give out grant money for building additions or new schools, we would be retroactively involved in that. So if in 5 years, the state says, hey, we've got block grants for building, we may get money from the state to pay off that loan earlier, so it wouldn't fall on the taxpayers. But that's a big if, that's a big if.
And yeah, been a long time since we had.
Yeah.
$8 block grant dollars for building construction. And
It's an if.
you know, well, when you look at a lot of our high schools now, they were built around the same time, 50, 60 years ago, and they're all in huge need of repair and or replacement. So I don't know what we're going to see down the road. But, you know, I don't know how much the state's going to be able to do. But I mean, you know, you were talking about, you know, 80% of the cost is going to be paid for by the ed fund.
Yeah.
That may be just the way it goes. The ed fund picks up instead of, you know, having capital expense or capital bill.
Yeah, which is, you know,
I think we get 40% when we build the school.
Is that what it was?
I think, because there was a special, it was 30%, but I think we got in on 40%.
But, you know, I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, we've done a lot of work on the design and really were thorough about what we were doing, and we built it in such a manner that we can grow. It's not just to accommodate our current number of students. There's enough room so that it's going to be big enough for the future. But you know, getting a
Educational requirements have changed in the last generation. That's really the reason.
I was on the school board 15 years ago. We never had more than 105 kids. And it was tight then. I mean, I know it was built for a certain amount, but 15 years ago, you know, the closets over here were not being used for basketball. And you look at the 126, 147 kids, it's time to do something. It's time to do it.
Thank you. Guys, would you like to introduce and add anything to that?
Yeah, so I'm John Alden with Scott and Partners Architects, and this is Kevin Scott, also with our office. And it's true that a lot of the state requirements haven't changed that much, but it has actually changed a lot how you deliver education. All of those little offices and all those extra people, I was going through the list of all the people that are paid educators that are in the building. It's probably 3 or 4 times more than when, you know, the kids were here and it was built for more kids. It also was built for less teachers. And so that is really astounding in a way, because every school that we've worked in over the last 20 years has been adding those smaller spaces. And they usually take over a classroom to do it. So it happens everywhere we go, because they don't have the schools we went to when we were growing up. It was, you know, however many classrooms, and each one was a grade or something, and that was it. That's all they didn't have any of those. You had the nurses and that's it. But now you have a lot of, not necessarily remedial places, but there's a lot of this extra rooms where there's more, you know, detailed instruction and more one-on-one or more one-on-two or small groups or something. And, you know, you just can't keep adding those and not suffer with the rest of your population. So where you might have had, you know, 10 classrooms and 11 teachers because you had a band or special instructor or something, you now have probably 20 or 25 adults or, you know, educators and paraeducators and everybody else. So you really have altered the way you work in the building, and that's what we're seeing as much as the population, you know, down in Chittenden County, you know, they're falling out of the windows down there. Nobody has enough space. There are no, you know, not in the schools, even just in housing. So those housing groups are moving out, right? So it's not Burlington that's growing, it's all the surrounding counties in Chittenden County, and it's not Chittenden County that's growing, it's everybody that's outside of that. So, you know, we've got an interesting population surge happening throughout the state with people coming in who decided that they're not going to be in the cities anymore. They're coming up here, and you know, we have all new neighbors in our neighborhood. You know, my kids are out of the house, but all these other families are moving in and working from home. Allegedly, they're not even working in Vermont, but they're here. So I'm not sure how you even count those people, but I'm just thinking, you know, Coventry and places like Coventry are so desirable from that aspect that I wouldn't be surprised if that population influx just happens to keep coming, because A, they can't afford a house in Chittenden County, and you know, their average home price is $300,000 to $400,000. So anyway, the school project we started a couple of years ago, and it's been a great pleasure to work with Todd and his staff to try and get you know, fine tune this. So how many classrooms, what are they for, what are the extra spaces, how do we work around the existing building, can we go upstairs, does it make any sense? Yes, some of the structure up there was designed to receive a floor load, but it wasn't designed to have windows or any other things that are required in an educational space. So not only that, but the whole sequence of construction says if you're building over top of another space, that other space is impacted to the point where you can't use it for the duration of construction pretty much. So that really hampers the ability to run school during the construction, which is what we also talked about. So we're pretty happy with the way this all came out. We've gone through, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 iterations of the final version. And so that's what you see before you now. It'll change a little bit, but between the time it gets approved and we're all over the place. We've got the concept there, but it'll be another year before we build it. So we want to kind of continue to make those adjustments as we go forward when we find out what Todd really wants.
I got my secret list.
By the time it gets built, and then it's like move a few walls here and there. Footprint will probably stay the same, and maybe it'll, it's gonna look pretty much like what we're showing, but there's always a chance that it's, oh my God, I need another storage closet over here, or there's move this wall over because that needs to be bigger than this, and we'll do that kind of thing as we go. We've got a lot to talk about.
So the heating system gonna be able to be plugged in what's there now? Or with climate change, are they gonna stay with oil?
We have a couple of different things going on now, so we're talking about adding a new wood pellet or wood chip boiler system to be a better way to produce the heat. And then we can sort of feed the new portion, but we'll also back feed the old portion. So we'll do something about the boiler that you have to keep leaking in your.
It's gonna be outside.
Does anybody else have a boiler in their attic at home?
Yeah, so we're gonna get away from any fossil fuels once it's built.
So I figured that you would have to plan that ahead.
The plan is for it to go right by the shed out here.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, the existing boiler upstairs has been problematic over the years.
Burlington had the system to begin with, so it would freeze in the winter and be too hot in the summer. It was ridiculous. The control, yeah.
Have you thought about the clean energy development plan?
Yeah, I've spoken with them. They were just waiting for us to get the
A
final.
number of
plans.
years ago, I was able to get,
Yeah,
can't remember, $250,000 that we never used.
Yep.
Yeah, it could be dollars for that.
There's some good stuff going to biomass.
Yeah.
We looked into.
That budget also includes adding sprinkler protection in the addition and the whole existing building.
Do you need to increase the size of the pipe coming in?
The sprinkler pipe?
Yeah.
Well, we think the sprinkler coming from a tank buried in the ground somewhere, because we know the fire service is here, but it's not quite the flow or the pressure that everybody's hoping. So we'll either get the engineering that tells us it's just barely going to work. We'll have to supplement it with other stored water.
We'll hook up to Dave's house.
Yeah, the flow is adequate out of the microscope.
I keep hearing
Mixed
signals.
I'll take it up.
People are trying to say it'll work, but I'm still, until the fire marshal and the fire chief both agree that it's going to work and the pressure's there and they can prove it, we can't necessarily rely.
And that's part of the standard design, that design and engineering is yet to occur. This is kind of a conceptual idea. If it works 90% of it, there is still to do the standard.
Will it be a wood construction or steel beams?
There'll be a steel structural system and then, metal stud wall system, that kind of thing.
You can't do the wood studs in schools. I don't think the code.
You're probably
Small.
It's small. The bigger you get, the more sophisticated the construction type needs to be. And we'd much rather have non-combustible material.
Yeah, right. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
The time frame is changed over the years as we push this back because of COVID and such. But with voting on it tomorrow, if it were to pass, it would give plenty of time to do the detailed designs, and then by next fall, and then do bidding next winter, and then start next April, March or April. So it's quite a delay. We would, be fully into it until October of, of 2024.
How long do you predict that could be built within?
Yeah.
It'll take a good 6 months to do this, and it might be 7. So what we have to do is really, sequence it properly with the school year so that you take advantage of the summer, but summer's only 2.5 months.
Right.
So everybody says, oh, we'll build it, real fast this summer. No, it doesn't really work that way. That they try to do as much as they can in the summer, and the goal would be to do as much of the renovation work that affects the ability to use the current building, get that out of the way so that it's not slowing you down when you're trying to move back in the fall. But,
and we'll be moving the modulars so that we can still use them during that, the time of construction. The modular will come into the parking lot area.
So you'll still have.
So Mike, I might be calling you back about that. We can't leave it where it is, or it'd be stuck back there when the addition gets built, so. But we'll definitely remember.
Have you, so if I remember right, the 6th, 7th, 8th grade are slated there.
Yes.
Has the board thought about in the future, have you been thinking about possibly a pre-CTE program that could be housed there as well?
Say, I'm sorry.
I don't
Phil
know.
was just trying to-
Pre-career technical education.
Well, it's interesting. I've been talking with the new director. I'm forgetting one's last name now. Bailey, I think, at North Country, and a few of us are chatting with her on how to tie at least 8th graders, if not 7th and 8th graders, into some sort of, pre-high school CTE. Now, the trick is, it really starts in 11th and 12th grade, a little bit of 10th grade, depending on the program and the child. But something where it generates that interest and that passion to want to stay at school. I mean, really right now, we want to keep kids in school. And so having something that appeals to them. I'm not sure we have anything directly here. One thing we do have, because we have the amazing Irene Digest, is a makerspace. And if we had that sort of ties into a similar sort of thing, but that kind of creativity STEM stuff. And she works on a mobile cart or in the library right now. And so that limits what she can do. You give her own space, and that woman's gonna do some magic. So, it really, there are physical limitations with our setup right now.
So a lot of the tech, tech ed or some variation of that, but a lot of those, sort of more technical modules are taught at the junior high level in many places. And a lot of them have gotten more and more technology based, so it's just a matter of having the space. So if you've got the maker space and that's in the project, you can add modules if you have the interest in the teaching staff to go with it. It doesn't take up any more space than other things.
So how many feet are you adding?
We're adding about 5,000 square feet.
Oh,
On the first floor.
10,000 total.
10,000.
per floor?
It's about 10,000 square feet total. There's a little bit of interior renovation and then the new floor space. Sorry.
The upstairs, the existing upstairs would become, it's not total loss, it would become much needed storage. So a lot of that, we really lack for storage right now. my closet has been taken over by masks. The shower is a lot of other PPE and whatever else we need for COVID right now. And the shower is something, you surprisingly sometimes need in an elementary school. And so then we gotta empty everything out. So, I mean, and that's all over the school. So just to have just a couple big rooms of storage is like unbelievably mouth-wateringly enticing.
I know how you feel, my house is like that.
And how about restrooms? ADA compliant for kids, for
Everything-
staff?
Everything we touch will become ADA compliant.
Oh, yeah.
So all the new space will be by requirement, and all of the renovated space will be also brought into compliance, which doesn't necessarily mean that every room that we touch is going to get changed. It means that when you look at all the renovation work as a total, you're allowed to have, let's say, if 2 bathrooms right together, you're allowed to put one of them.
Back to back.
You can have one that's acceptable next to one that's not accessible, and you're still okay. As long as the same people can do the other one.
So the upstairs, there would be bathrooms, or at least a bathroom, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2, and the upstairs part, which is really great when we think about a middle school space. We put an office up there for small group work, we put an office for, another individual, if we needed somebody up there, and then bathrooms. So really, the middle schoolers don't need to wander. And that is an issue. Right now with the modular, they can go to the bathroom and be gone for quite a while. We saved a lot by not putting plumbing out there, but it's got its costs.
Well, plus you're not gonna have 8th graders using the same bathroom as a 2nd grader, which.
Yeah.
So,
But you might as well put the plumbing there now.
yeah. So, yeah, we've got bathrooms here for this floor, but there would be some up on the upstairs.
For staff also?
And there is, I think, one for staff at the end of that hall, yeah. Sort of where the music room is now.
And no rugs, right?
No what?
Probably not.
No rugs.
I know.
Move down to the floor, but a lot of people bring in some type of area.
Well, you want me to go get that sample? Or is that too soon?
Yeah, that's too soon.
We got it, what kind of flooring we're looking at?
Okay.
I think like the technical, I think that's a really big thing. When I went to school, my kids went to school, you thought of what you wanted to do, and then you went and did it and found out you hated it after, 6 months or 2 years of college. So all the career center stuff, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And to start in the, this level too, give them more direction.
You can fill you in a little bit more the directions that we're going. If I get my way.
I think it would be great to schedule you to come in for one of our upcoming school board meetings to talk about that. I think that'd be.
Yeah, I'd love to. There's a lot of exciting things going on right now, and we're having a second study done this year. There's one that's going to start. We're going to authorize another on. One is how do we recreate, or how do we create the adult side of the CTE? Because right now it doesn't sit at AOE, it doesn't sit anywhere. There's no really an umbrella of regulation over it. So it's kind of willy-nilly right now. The CTE directors and the adult side have kind of coalesced somewhat, so that they're having some coordinated curriculum. But we want to see more structure to that. We want the secondary and the adult side kind of seamlessly working together, so that when somebody graduates and they're going through certifications or something like that, that they flow right into the adult side of it. We're working on right now in my workforce bill, we're working on a $15 million fund that will be there for the CTEs around the state. All the career centers can access it to purchase blighted properties, within their districts, hopefully as close to the career center as possible. But any career center that has a building trades program going on, they'll be able to access that money to purchase those properties, rehab them, and then turn them around and using the kids as, so it's a real education.
That's brilliant.
Yep.
And then rehab it, and turn it back into the community again, sell it. Hopefully some of it will be single family dwellings that people could purchase. Not gonna help us big time in the housing part, but it will help us big time in the workforce that we need in the future. And we're also, we don't believe that 11th and 12th grade is the right place for them to start looking at career centers. We actually are thinking 6th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th for a pre-career center, and then flowing right up through 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I think, you know, our thought is that, and the governor said it, but we've been saying it for a long time before he did, is that career center, CTE has to be elevated to the same level as the college education. And, you know, we're not seeing that right now. So there's a huge value in college, but there's also a huge value in CTE and certifications. And so that's the direction that we're pushing in right now. And we're hoping that, I'm hoping in the next 2 or 3 years that we're going to be able to make those changes. I finally have the education committee in the House involved and behind it too, so it makes a huge difference. My committee's been talking about it for years, but getting no traction. But because of COVID, the issues that we're having with our workforce now, it's really made a big difference. So I encourage you to really think about how do we, you know, use a pre-CTE within Coventry in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I think that's the direction we want to go. And, you know, talk to the SU too, keep them informed and tell them where you want to go. And let that flow up into, you know, into the AOE. That's kind of where things are at the moment, but, you know, as things progress, I'd love to come down, let you know what's happening in that realm anyway.
Great.
The other education parts that I don't deal with, but.
To add to that too, if these kids are learning this stuff, if you graduate high school and don't want to go on to college, and you don't have any experience, they're not going to hire you. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Oh, if you don't have 2 or 3 or 5 years experience, we're not going to train you. I think that would be really good.
And it is hard to find people in the trades right now. We have a hard time getting folks to call us back here at the school, much less look for jobs.
Well, our oldest one graduated here. He's a master electrician. He's done work here. So.
It took almost a year to find someone to give us a bid on the roof on the church.
Yeah.
Just you came and compare bids. You're lucky to be able to get a bid.
You know, everybody's looking for help. The schools aren't immune to it. The education system is not immune. The state's not immune. Nobody's immune. There's a bill, I think, that's coming on the floor when we get back next week to allow teachers that have retired to come back and teach for a year to help lessen the load that's on the other teachers. And so it won't affect their pensions. So hopefully that passes and gets through. Yeah, things are rough. I'm not going to get any better, I don't think, until we start doing a lot of other things. We need housing, we need childcare. Those are 2 huge issues that we can solve when we can bring more people into the space. But trying to go out and bring people in right now without any housing, without the ability for their kids to be taken care of is doesn't make a lot of sense to spend that money right now. A lot of money we're putting into nursing and healthcare. There was one report that we got last week that Vermont is the highest state for the need of nurses in the country. And we're at 58% loss of nursing they're 58%, more nurses. The next one down is at 26%, so they're the next state down, it's number 2 in the country. But just, I don't know, it just shows you huge need that we have. But where there's doom and gloom, there's always opportunity, so now is our opportunity to really do things. that, We need everybody. You know, anything you can do to talk to the SU and let them know so that all of that flows up to Montpelier.
New superintendent, welcome meeting with her. She's super receptive on this. Anything else in the addition?
I'd just like to say, if anybody's voting in person tomorrow, on your way, pick up some friends and family and bring them with you.
Yeah.
Deb? Thank you guys for coming up here again.
No problem.
Thank you.